We're sitting in a dim, upscale restaurant, the kind with candles and tablecloths that cost more than my monthly gym membership. It's our 10th anniversary, a milestone I thought we were both excited about. Emily is across from me in a sleek black dress, looking stunning as always, but something feels wrong. She's smiling, her eyes glinting, but not at me. Her phone keeps buzzing in her lap, and she sneaks glances down at it between bites of her steak. I tell myself it's nothing, just friends wishing her well on our big day. But then, her face lights up as she reads a new message, and this time, a small, secret smile spreads across her lips. Not one I've seen in a while. We've barely started dessert when she excuses herself to go to the restroom, taking her phone with her, and she doesn't come back for a long time. Too long. My gut starts to knot as I sit there, staring at the untouched slice of cake, replaying the last few months in my head. The late nights, the new friends she's made, the cryptic smiles at her screen, the perfume she never used to wear. When she finally returns, her face is flushed, her eyes bright, and as she sits down, she barely looks at me. And then I hear it, a low, flirtatious laugh behind me. I don't think much of it until I see her glance over my shoulder, her lips curving up. My heart drops. I turn slowly, looking for the source of her amusement. A man 2 tables over catches my eye. He's tall, well-dressed, with that slick, self-assured look some guys carry like an aura. And he's staring right at my wife. I watch her, waiting, hoping I'm wrong. But she holds his gaze for a beat too long. And I know. I just know. Every single thing I've been shoving down for weeks crashes over me in that moment. Without saying a word, I reach into my jacket pocket, pull out the letter I'd written her for our 10th anniversary. This heartfelt piece that took me hours to perfect, detailing everything I loved about her. Our memories, our plans. I slide it across the table toward her. Her eyes drop to it, and for the first time that night, she looks startled. Happy anniversary, I say, my voice ice cold. She opens her mouth, but no words come out. And I don't wait. I stand up, button my jacket, and walk out of that restaurant, leaving her with her perfectly cooked steak, her secret smiles, and the letter that suddenly feels like the most foolish thing I've ever written. The walk to my car feels like a fever dream. My hands are trembling as I grip the steering wheel, my mind racing in 1,000 directions but not landing anywhere solid. The image of her looking at that guy, no, practically drinking him in, is burned into my memory. And the worst part? That spark in her eyes, that glow on her face. I can't remember the last time she looked at me that way. I drive home on autopilot, my head filled with a raging storm of questions. How long has this been going on? Who the hell is that guy? How could she just sit across from me, on our anniversary, and act like everything was fine? My mind spirals, running through every conversation we've had in the last few months, every late night she's been working, every excuse she's given for her me time. I realize I've been ignoring red flags so obvious they practically slapped me in the face. As soon as I get home, I do the one thing I'd promised myself I'd never do. I pick up her laptop and start digging. I know her password. It's been the same for years, and, frankly, I don't think she ever expected I'd go snooping. But tonight, I don't care. If she has secrets, I'm about to dig them all up. The first thing I check is her email, and it's clean. Too clean. There's not a single personal email in her inbox, just work correspondence and the usual spam. Suspicious. She's too organized, too perfect with it all. But then, I think about her phone, which is practically glued to her hand these days. I knew she'd gotten a second messaging app, something she'd mentioned in passing, claiming it was for work. I find the app on her laptop and pull it up. The moment it opens, a name pops up in the message list, Aiden. My gut twists again, but I tell myself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe he's a colleague, a friend, just a name. But then I open the chat, and the first thing I see is a selfie of him. Shirt slightly unbuttoned, leaning against what looks like a hotel bed, grinning. It's followed by a string of messages, casual at first, but then becoming flirtatious, laced with inside jokes, the kind that come from private conversations shared in secret. And just when I think it can't get worse, I stumble upon a recent message from her. My wife. It reads, "Can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Last night was incredible." I freeze. Everything goes numb. The reality of it sinks in, hitting like a punch to the stomach. I scroll back, barely registering the words anymore. It's all there, out in the open, as if she didn't care about hiding it anymore. A whole separate life. A separate version of her I never even knew existed. Sitting there, staring at that screen, I feel a wave of anger so intense it practically blinds me that I don't sleep that night. Instead, I sit there on the couch, just replaying everything I saw on her laptop. Her messages, her laughing with this guy, and worst of all, her plans to see him again. It's like every memory of our life together is being systematically ripped apart, replaced by these vivid, ugly details. And it's killing me. Around 1 a.m., I hear her car pull up in the driveway. She comes through the door, slipping off her heels quietly like she's hoping not to wake me. But when she spots me sitting there in the dim light, she stops short, and for a split second, I see something flash in her eyes. Guilt? Fear? I can't tell, but it's gone just as quickly, replaced with an annoyingly calm expression. "You're still up?" she says, feigning surprise. "I thought you went to bed." Her voice is light, like we're about to chat about the weather or some harmless small talk. "Couldn't sleep?" I reply, barely recognizing the coldness in my own voice. "Not after tonight." She pauses, an uncomfortable silence settling between us. She seems uncertain, as if she's trying to decide how much I know. "After you walked out, she trails off, frowning like she's the one hurt here. "I can't believe you left me like that, on our anniversary. What was that all about?" "You really want to talk about what happened at dinner?" I say, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Or should we talk about Aiden?" For a moment, she's frozen, her face draining of color. I watch the shock register, then the flash of anger as she realizes I've gone through her messages. The silence stretches long and tense between us, and I can see her mind racing, scrambling for a way to twist this in her favor. "Are you serious?" she finally says, her voice laced with disbelief. "You went through my stuff? That's a huge invasion of privacy." "Unbelievable. Privacy." I snap, the anger I've been holding back finally breaking through. "You're seriously talking about privacy right now? How about honesty? How about loyalty? You think I wouldn't find out you've been sneaking around with this guy?" She scoffs, rolling her eyes, and it's like a slap in the face. She doesn't even try to deny it. Instead, she looks at me with this mocking little smirk, like I'm the one who's overreacting. "Look, it's not what you think, okay? Aiden he's just a friend. Someone I talk to. Sometimes I need someone who listens to me, who doesn't treat me like some kind of roommate, or worse, a burden." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Suddenly, I'm the bad guy? She's standing there, making me the villain, twisting it as though I drove her into another man's arms. I can feel my jaw clenching, my fists tightening, but I force myself to keep calm. "Oh, so this is my fault?" I say, sarcasm dripping from every word. "Right, because our issues justify sneaking around with some guy behind my back. And what about those messages? Can't wait to see you again tomorrow? Last night was incredible? You expect me to believe that's nothing?" She crosses her arms, shrugging like she's almost bored of this conversation. "Look, we're just two people who've grown apart. You can't expect things to stay the same forever. I needed something different. Someone who actually pays attention to me. It's like I don't even know this woman standing in front of me." I feel myself breaking down, each word ripping me apart. She's not sorry. She's not ashamed. If anything, she's annoyed. Annoyed that I had the audacity to uncover her betrayal. "So that's it then?" I say, barely holding it together. "After everything, this is just over?" She looks away, sighing heavily, like she's been inconvenienced by my pain. Maybe it's for the best, honestly. We're clearly not on the same page anymore. I just stand there, speechless, watching her as she strolls down the hallway toward our bedroom, leaving me standing in the darkness, drowning in disbelief that as she disappears down the hall, I'm left standing there, replaying her words over and over. We're clearly not on the same page anymore, like she's writing off a decade with a careless shrug. I'm paralyzed, caught in this brutal realization that the life I thought we had, the life I thought we were building together, is nothing more than an illusion. I finally move, walking into the kitchen, needing something, anything to ground myself. I grab a glass of water, but my hand shakes so hard it spills. And then, just like that, the anger flares up again, red hot and unstoppable. I slam the glass down, the sound shattering the quiet, just like everything else tonight. It hits me then, I have to know more. I can't just let her make vague excuses, brushing me off as if I'm some minor inconvenience she's outgrown. I need to see everything she's been hiding. The thought of her texting Aiden right now, telling him about this confrontation, maybe even laughing about it, fills me with a fury I can't contain. I storm down the hall, pushing open the bedroom door without knocking. She's sitting on the bed, scrolling through her phone, her expression somewhere between bored and irritated, as if she's already mentally clocked out of this marriage. When she sees me, she rolls her eyes again, and that small, dismissive gesture nearly sets me off all over again. "What now?" she snaps, clearly done with pretending to care. "Hand me your phone," I say, my voice tight. She blinks, surprised, and then lets out a short, humorless laugh. "Are you serious?" she says, smirking. "You've already gone through my messages. What, you didn't find enough dirt on me?" "Maybe I haven't," I reply, refusing to let her flippant tone throw me off. "But I'm done with your lies. If there's more, then I'm going to see it for myself. Or do you have something you're still hiding?" Her face twists with irritation, but she hands me the phone, almost daring me. "Go ahead, knock yourself out. Maybe you'll finally get it through your head that you're not the only person in this world who has needs." I take the phone, half expecting her to snatch it back at the last second. But she doesn't. She just sits there, arms crossed, watching me with that same unbothered look. I scroll through her messages, this time with a calm focus I didn't have before. I'm going through everything. Messages with friends, work chats, even her browsing history. I'm looking for any hint that this isn't as serious as it seems, that maybe there's some mistake. But every swipe just digs me deeper into the truth. In her messages with Aiden, I find more than I was prepared for. It isn't just flirting or casual chats. It's a full-blown relationship, a double life. Dates planned out weeks in advance, inside jokes, photos of places they've been together. There's a message from just last week where she says, "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. Wish I was there with you now." I stare at the screen, feeling each word like a stab. This isn't a fling. This is a real thing she's built behind my back. A life she's so obviously more invested in than the one she shares with me. I look up, my voice barely a whisper. "Why?" She shrugs, barely even meeting my eyes. "Maybe I just wanted to feel something again. You stopped looking at me like I mattered ages ago." "That's not true," I say, feeling an ache in my chest. "I never stopped caring. But you didn't even give me a chance, did you? You just replaced me." She sighs, standing up as if this conversation is too exhausting for her. Honestly, maybe it's for the best. We both know this marriage hasn't been working. You can't keep holding on to some perfect version of us that doesn't exist anymore. With that, she walks past me, heading for the bathroom, and I stand there, watching her leave yet again, realizing that this woman, the one who just casually dismantled our life, isn't the woman I thought I'd married. She disappears into the bathroom, shutting the door behind her as if that settles everything, as if this conversation is over and done. But my mind is still spinning. Every word she just said feels like a new wound, cutting deeper than the last. I stare down at her phone, which is still unlocked in my hand, the messages with Aiden open on the screen. Her entire betrayal is there, laid out in front of me, and it's relentless. There are details, too many of them, each one tearing down a piece of what I thought we were. I scroll further back, needing to know just how long this has been going on. 6 months. A full 6 months of lying, sneaking around, and coming home to me as if nothing was wrong. I find messages where she talks about meeting him for drinks. Ones where she tells him she's almost home after leaving his place. All while I was probably cluelessly waiting for her, thinking she was just working late. Then, a detail catches my eye. A message about a weekend she spent with friends at a cabin. She had shown me photos from that trip, laughing about silly moments with her girlfriends, telling me about the hike they'd taken. She even brought home a souvenir, a little mug she picked up at a local shop, which she handed to me with a smirk, saying, Something to remember me by. Now I know the truth. That wasn't a girl's trip. That weekend was spent with him. The door to the bathroom clicks open, and she steps out, surprised to see I'm still standing there, her phone in hand. Her expression tightens, but there's a flicker of something else. Annoyance, maybe even anger. "Can you give that back?" she says, her voice cool. I hold up the phone, scrolling through the messages with Aiden. "So the cabin weekend with your girlfriends. That was with him?" She sighs, exasperated, as if I'm the one being unreasonable. "Look, it doesn't matter now. We both know this marriage has been on life support. You just didn't want to admit it. Stop blaming me," I say, my voice barely controlled. "This isn't about our marriage being on life support. This is about you deciding to go behind my back instead of talking to me, instead of giving us a chance to fix things." She rolls her eyes, crossing her arms. "Maybe I didn't think there was anything left to fix. Honestly, maybe I just didn't want to fix it. You think you're some perfect husband, but you're not. You're so wrapped up in your own world, always focused on work, on your routines, like I'm just part of the background." Her words feel like another punch, but I don't look away. "So you didn't even think I deserved a conversation? You just decided to blow up our life without even giving me a chance." She lets out a bitter laugh. "A conversation? What would that have done? You would have promised to change, but we both know nothing would have. I was tired of waiting for you to see me, to actually care about me." Aiden does that. I feel myself growing cold, her words hardening something inside me. "So that's it. You decided that your needs were worth betraying me, lying to my face every single day." "Yes," she says bluntly, her eyes narrowing. "Because for the first time in years, I felt alive. And I'm not going to apologize for that. It's like the final mask has slipped off, and I'm seeing her as she really is, without any trace of remorse or regret. Just cold, defiant indifference. It's clear this isn't about me. This is about her and what she wanted, and she doesn't care how many pieces she's left me in to get it." I hand her the phone, feeling like every hope, every ounce of love I had for her is draining away. "Well, if that's the life you want, then go ahead and have it. Because this is over." She takes the phone, her face unreadable, and I turn, walking out of the bedroom, leaving her standing alone. Just like she deserves, I walk into the spare room, the one we always kept as an office but never really used. I close the door behind me, shutting her out. My mind races, but I know what I need to do. I pull out my phone and dial my best friend, Dan. It rings a few times and I start to worry he won't pick up. But finally, his groggy voice answers. "Dude, it's 2 a.m., he mutters, clearly half asleep. "Dan, I need you. I'm sorry for calling so late, but it's Emily. I just found out she's been cheating on me." The words feel raw coming out, as if saying them makes everything sharper, more real. There's silence on the other end, then the rustle of him sitting up. "Are you serious?" "Man, I don't even know what to say. What happened?" I take a deep breath, filling him in on everything: the restaurant, the guy in the messages, the cabin trip. Every awful, twisted detail that's been churning in my mind all night. I can feel my anger building all over again as I talk, my voice cracking in places, but Dan stays quiet, listening without interrupting. When I finish, there's a long pause. "So, she just admitted it? Just like that? She didn't even flinch?" I say, bitterness flooding through me. "She blamed me, said I didn't pay attention to her, that I was wrapped up in my own world, like I'm the reason she decided to go find someone else." Dan lets out a slow breath, the disbelief evident in his voice. That's cold, man. Really cold. What are you going to do?" "I don't know. I mean, right now I can't even look at her. I feel like everything I thought I knew about her was a lie."
10 years, Dan.
10 years, and she throws it away like it's nothing. How do I come back from that? "Listen," he says, his tone serious. "You don't need to decide everything tonight, but you do need to protect yourself. This is a woman who was lying to you while sitting across from you at dinner. She's not going to change overnight. You need to think about what you want, and more than that, what you deserve." Those words hit me hard. I've been so focused on the betrayal, on the anger and the pain, that I haven't even considered what I deserve. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future without her in it. No more lies, no more excuses, no more wondering where she really is when she says she's at work. A life where I'm not a second option, where I'm not blindsided by the person I trust the most. I think you're right, I say, feeling a small surge of clarity amidst the chaos. I can't make this work if she's not even willing to try. And honestly, after seeing her like that tonight, I don't even know if I want to. Then don't, Dan says firmly. Come stay with me for a few days. Get some space, clear your head. You don't owe her anything after what she's done. The relief of having a plan, even a small one, feels like the first steady ground I've had all night.
Thanks, Dan.
Really, I'll pack a bag and be over soon. I hang up, take a deep breath, and head to the bedroom to grab my things. Emily is lying on the bed, scrolling through her phone like nothing's happened. Like this is just another ordinary night. She barely glances up as I walk in. I'm going to stay at Dan's for a few days, I say, keeping my voice steady. I need space from you. From this. She shrugs, not even looking up. Do what you want. Maybe it'll give us both some time to think. I feel a final surge of anger, but I bite it back. Instead, I grab my bag, pack a few essentials, and walk out without another word. I don't look back. I just keep going, out the door and into the night, away from the woman I thought I knew and toward a future I never imagined I'd have to face alone. Dan's place is a good half-hour drive, but I barely register the road, the passing lights, or even the music on the radio. I'm numb, completely drained, every ounce of adrenaline spent. By the time I pull into his driveway, I feel like I've aged a decade in the last few hours. He's already waiting at the door, looking as serious as I've ever seen him. We sit down in his small kitchen, and he hands me a beer without saying a word. The silence is heavy, but honestly, I'm glad for it. I don't want the usual sympathetic looks or reassuring pats on the back. For the first time in hours, I feel like I can just be without having to explain myself or make excuses for her. After a few minutes, Dan finally breaks the silence. You know, he says slowly, I never wanted to say anything, but looking back, maybe there were signs. I glance at him, a bit thrown by his words. What do you mean? He sighs, rubbing a hand over his face. It's just, she never seemed fully there whenever you'd bring her around. You know? Always on her phone, always stepping out to take a call or texting someone. I thought maybe it was work stress or something, but there were times it felt like, I don't know, like she was just checking a box by being there with you. Hearing this, from someone who's known me for years, someone I trust, it cuts deep. I think back to all those times I brushed off her distance, convinced myself that every couple has ups and downs, that it was just a phase. I remember how she'd go out without telling me, how she'd get defensive over small questions, snapping at me for being controlling if I so much as asked who she was with, and I'd let it go every time. I thought that was normal, I say, the bitterness creeping into my voice. I thought we were just comfortable, that it was natural for things to settle down over time. Dan shakes his head, his expression firm. There's comfortable, and then there's disconnected. It's not normal to feel like a stranger to the person you've been with for 10 years, man. I feel that ache in my chest again, a hollow space where my trust used to be. All this time, I've been fighting to keep something alive that she'd already let die. I let myself believe every excuse she threw my way, convinced myself I was just being paranoid. Dan takes a sip of his beer, looking thoughtful. What's your plan now? I mean, are you actually considering working things out with her? I shake my head, my answer coming faster than I expected. No, not anymore. I saw the way she looked at me tonight, like I was nothing to her. No apology, no regret, just empty. It feels strange to say it out loud, but it also feels right. Like I'm finally facing the truth I've been avoiding for months. Maybe longer. Dan nods, relief flickering in his eyes. Good. You don't deserve this, man. You deserve someone who actually cares, who doesn't take you for granted. And if she can't even feel sorry for what she's done, that's not someone worth fighting for. We sit there for a while, the silence settling around us. No need for more words. Slowly, the numbness starts to fade, replaced by a strange, painful clarity. I know what I have to do now. This isn't just a rough patch. Something that can be fixed with a couple of conversations or promises to work on things. This is the end of something I thought would last forever. And as much as it hurts, as much as it feels like tearing my own heart out, I realize that it's what I need. Tomorrow, I'm calling a lawyer. I say quietly, but with a firmness that surprises even me. I'm done with her lies. I'm done with all of it. Dan raises his beer in a quiet toast, and I clink mine against his. We don't say anything more. We don't need to. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I feel a tiny sense of relief. It's like stepping into the cold, harsh truth, and finally being able to breathe. The next morning, I wake up on Dan's couch, my neck stiff and my head pounding. I barely slept, every thought tangled in the mess that Emily left me with. I don't waste any time. I sit up, reach for my phone, and start searching for divorce lawyers. Just seeing the word divorce on my screen feels like a punch to the gut. But I remind myself that this is what needs to happen. She already made her choice. I'm just following through. Around 8 a.m., Dan brings me a coffee, and I tell him my plan. He nods, approving, and offers to drive me back to the house to grab a few more things before I call a lawyer. I know I'll need clothes, my laptop, important documents, things I'd been too numb to grab last night. When we pull up to the house, my stomach clenches. The sight of the place feels surreal, like I'm visiting the shell of a life I once had. But I steel myself, push down the feelings, and head inside, Dan close behind me. I half expect her to still be in bed, scrolling through her phone like nothing happened. But when I walk into the house, it's obvious she's already up. I find her in the living room, sitting on the couch, staring at her phone with a look that I can't quite read. She glances up as I enter, and her face changes, slipping into this forced look of annoyance. "So," she says flatly, folding her arms. "You're back." "Yeah," I reply, keeping my voice steady. "Just grabbing some things." She raises an eyebrow, her tone sharp. "And you thought bringing your friend here was necessary? A little dramatic, don't you think?" Dan opens his mouth to say something, but I give him a quick shake of my head. I don't want him getting dragged into this. This is between her and me. "Dramatic? Kind of rich coming from you," I say, trying not to let her get under my skin. "I thought you'd at least have the decency to feel some remorse. Or is that too much to expect?" She scoffs, rolling her eyes. "Oh, please, you're acting like this is all my fault. Newsflash, you weren't exactly a perfect husband. You ignored me for years, buried yourself in work. I'm not the only one responsible for the way things turned out." I feel my fists clench, anger bubbling up all over again. I can barely believe what I'm hearing. She chose to lie, to cheat, to betray me. And now she's sitting here trying to pin this on me? "You know what, Emily?" I say, my voice cold and measured. "I might not have been perfect, but at least I was loyal. I didn't sneak around behind your back and make you feel like a fool. I didn't destroy our life because I needed excitement. That was all you." She glares at me, but I can see something else behind her eyes now. Maybe a hint of uncertainty, maybe even guilt, though she's too stubborn to admit it. She glances down at her phone, tapping her fingers on it as if it's the only thing grounding her. "I don't have to justify myself to you," she says finally, her voice dropping to a low hiss. "You want to leave? Fine, go. But don't come back here acting like you're some saint. You're not." At that, I take a step back, suddenly feeling a strange, freeing sense of finality. She's made it clear there's nothing left here. Whatever love or respect we once shared is long gone, replaced by this bitter stranger sitting across from me. I don't know her anymore, and I don't want to. "Goodbye, Emily," I say, turning toward the door without waiting for her response. "I'll have a lawyer contact you soon." As I walk out, I can feel her eyes burning into my back, but I don't look back. I don't hesitate. Dan follows me out, and as we step outside, I let out a long breath, feeling lighter than I have in weeks. It's over. Really, truly over. And for the first time, that thought doesn't crush me. It gives me a strange, powerful sense of relief. I don't even make it a block from the house before my phone buzzes. I glance down, and sure enough, it's Emily. She's sent a string of messages, alternating between anger and sudden, forced sentimentality. One moment, she's accusing me of being childish and overdramatic. In the next, She's talking about how she didn't mean for it to end this way, how she thought we could be adults about this. I can practically feel her desperation leaking through the screen. Dan notices my expression and lets out a low whistle. She's already blowing up your phone. Huh? Didn't take her long. I silence my phone without reading the rest of the messages, feeling a dull ache in my chest. She's scrambling now, trying to take control, trying to twist this into something manageable, something she can explain away. But it's too late. Her attempts to guilt me, to shift blame, don't carry any weight anymore. I'm done. The next few hours feel like a whirlwind. I call the lawyer that Dan recommended, laying everything out in a cold, factual tone that surprises even me. Divorce used to feel like an impossible word, something reserved for other people, for relationships that didn't have a foundation like ours. But now, it feels like the only solution, like I'm cutting myself free from a sinking ship. The lawyer listens, steady and professional, asking all the right questions, and by the end of the call, I feel like a plan is taking shape, like I have some control over this nightmare. Afterward, Dan insists on taking me out to get some food, get my mind off things, if only for an hour or two. We head to a small diner, the kind where the coffee is endless and the waitress knows everyone's name. It's exactly what I need, a taste of normalcy, something real, something simple. But even as I sit there, trying to eat, trying to focus on anything but her, the whole thing feels surreal. You're doing the right thing, Dan says, cutting into his omelet. It may not feel like it now, but trust me, you'll be glad you did this. She showed you who she really is. Better to know now than to keep living in her web of lies. I nod, feeling a small sense of resolve settle into place. He's right. I've spent years bending over backward to keep her happy, convincing myself that every little change, every unexplained absence, was just a phase. But Emily's betrayal runs deep, and now that I'm facing it head-on, there's a grim satisfaction in taking control, in moving forward. Then, just as I'm starting to relax, my phone buzzes again. Another message from Emily, but this time it's different. I'll make you regret this. The words are stark, cold, and they hit me like a bucket of ice water. Dan glances over, his brow furrowing as he reads the message over my shoulder. Wow, she's really showing her true colors now. Huh. I stare at the screen, feeling a chill creep through me. This isn't the woman I thought I knew. This is someone who's lost control, who's angry, who's desperate to hurt me in any way she can now that she knows she can't manipulate me anymore. But instead of rattling me, her threat only solidifies my resolve. She's right about one thing, there's no going back now. Let her try, I say, setting my phone down, feeling a strange calmness wash over me. She's got nothing left to take from me. Dan clinks his coffee cup against mine in a silent toast, his eyes full of encouragement. And for the first time, I feel something close to peace, like the ground beneath me is finally steady. The rest of the day is a blur of paperwork, calls, and planning. With Dan's help, I've started the process of disentangling my life from hers. Bank accounts, shared bills, even simple things like the streaming subscriptions we always argued about. Each step feels like removing a chain, one by one, lifting a weight I didn't realize had been pressing on me for so long. But as I'm going through the last of the paperwork, a new notification pops up on my phone. This time from a mutual friend, Jenny. She's someone we've known for years, one of those friends who's always on top of every piece of gossip, always knows everyone's business. Her message is blunt and to the point. Heard about you and Emily. Didn't think you'd actually go through with it. I stare at the message, my mind buzzing. Clearly, Emily's been talking. It doesn't surprise me, but it stings all the same, knowing that she's already telling people her side of the story, spinning this in whatever way suits her. I don't bother responding to Jenny. I don't have the energy to get pulled into whatever narrative Emily's already created. A moment later, I get another message, this time from Emily herself. Her tone has shifted again, as though the venom from earlier has drained out, leaving only pleading words. We don't have to do this. We could just talk, you know. I don't want things to end this way. It's a stark contrast to her earlier threat, and I feel a flicker of bitterness rise up, mingled with a strange sadness. But I know better than to get pulled into her games again. I take a breath, steadying myself, and type out my response. Emily, you made your choice. I can't live with lies, and I can't live with someone who doesn't respect me. It's too late. I hit send, letting the words settle, imagining her reading them, realizing she no longer has any power over me. I brace myself for another angry response, another attempt to tear me down, but instead, there's only silence. Maybe she finally understands that I'm serious this time, that her empty promises and half-hearted regrets won't work on me anymore. The silence lingers, stretching into the evening, until it's clear that she won't respond. And that's when I realize it, this is truly over. The weight of everything we shared, the love, the plans, the memories, all of it fades like smoke. What's left is a strange, hollow freedom, a feeling that's neither good nor bad, just real. As night falls, Dan and I sit out on his porch, looking out over his yard in the quiet. The stars are out, bright and indifferent to everything that's happened. I feel a sense of relief, and even though there's still an ache, a sadness that I know will take time to heal, there's also a sliver of hope. Dan hands me a beer, and we toast silently, no words necessary. I know that tomorrow, there'll be more challenges to face, but for tonight, I let myself just breathe, letting go of the weight of a love that was never really mine to hold on to. The next morning, I wake up to a flood of notifications. I blink against the light of my phone screen, squinting as messages and missed calls fill the display. Friends, family, even a few coworkers. Apparently, Emily has decided to make this breakup public. My heart sinks as I open one of the messages from my cousin. Lisa, hey, just heard from Emily. Are you okay? She's saying some pretty intense stuff about you. Didn't sound like the you I know. I scroll through the messages, each one echoing the same shock and concern. Each one hinting that Emily's story has already spread far and wide. I feel a familiar knot of frustration building in my stomach. It's not enough for her to betray me. Now she's trying to control the story, twisting it to make herself the victim. I dial Lisa, hoping to get a clearer picture. She picks up on the first ring, her voice a mix of relief and curiosity. Hey, are you okay? I mean, I didn't know things were this bad between you two. Lisa, I say, trying to keep my voice steady. What exactly did she tell you? There's a pause, and I hear her take a deep breath. She said you've been distant for months, that you were practically living separate lives. She even hinted that you were too controlling, that you barely let her go out with friends or do her own thing. I can feel my jaw clenching, anger simmering under the surface. That's not true. She was the one going out all the time, not telling me where she was or who she was with. She wasn't isolated. She was... I pause, choosing my words carefully. She was cheating on me, Lisa, for months. The line goes silent, and then I hear her gasp softly. She didn't say anything about that. I had no idea. No one did. I say, exhaling slowly. She's rewriting the whole thing to make me look like the bad guy. All I did was trust her, and this is how she repays me. Lisa's voice is full of empathy, mixed with a newfound edge. I'm so sorry. I believed her, but now I see it. She's always been good at twisting things when it suits her. I should have reached out to you first. I thank her, reassured to have at least one person who believes my side, and we hang up. But as I stare at the messages from others who've clearly been swayed by her story, I feel the bitterness returning. It's like she's still trying to hurt me, even when I'm trying to move on. Dan finds me pacing in the kitchen, scrolling through my phone. He raises an eyebrow. More drama. Yeah, I say, tossing the phone down. She's out there telling everyone I was distant, controlling, painting me as some kind of villain. And I'm just supposed to let her. Dan crosses his arms, his expression calm but determined. Look, man, you could go on a social media spree, defend yourself, tell your side of things, but do you really want to sink to her level? People who matter will see through it eventually. I let his words sink in. He's right, and I know it. The people who care, the ones who know me, won't buy her story. And honestly, I'm done letting her drag me into more chaos. She's desperate to control the narrative, to hold onto some shred of power. But the truth? It doesn't need defending. Yeah, I finally say, feeling a wave of calm wash over me. She can say whatever she wants. I'm done fighting for something that's over. Dan gives me a nod of approval, a faint smile crossing his face. Good. The best revenge is moving on and living well. Let her twist herself in circles trying to control the story. In the end, her lies will catch up to her. I pick up my phone, delete the messages, and block her number. For the first time, it feels like a real ending. There will be no more conversations, no more attempts to pull me back into her web. It's over, and this time I'm finally free. The days that follow are strangely quiet. For the first time in what feels like forever, I'm alone with my thoughts, with no buzzing phone or sudden crisis to pull me back into the chaos. Emily's friends and allies have stopped reaching out, maybe realizing that her story doesn't hold up, or maybe just tiring of the spectacle. Either way, the silence feels like a blessing. I spend the next few days settling into a routine. Dan's been incredibly supportive, offering me space whenever I need it, but also keeping me grounded. He pushes me to get out of the house, to focus on rebuilding the life that I'd let slip into Emily's shadow. I start going for morning runs again, something I hadn't done in years. It clears my head, fills my lungs with fresh air, and each step feels like I'm shedding another layer of her hold over me. One morning, during one of those early runs, I find myself at a park on the far side of town. I stop, leaning against a bench, catching my breath, when I spot an older man watching the sunrise. He's sitting alone, sipping from a thermos, his face calm and peaceful as he takes in the view. Something about his stillness, his ease with himself, makes me pause. I sit down on the opposite end of the bench, nodding to him. He gives me a warm smile, and after a few quiet minutes, he speaks. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" he says, his voice rich with the kind of wisdom that only comes from a lifetime of experiences. "Yeah," I reply, still catching my breath. "Feels like a good day to start over." He chuckles softly, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Starting over is tough, but it's also a gift, isn't it? Most people never get the chance. They stay stuck, afraid to let go, clinging to a past that doesn't serve them anymore. I nod, letting his words sink in. "It's funny," I say, half laughing. "I thought I was living my dream. I thought I had everything figured out. But the second I stopped pretending, everything fell apart." He looks over at me, his eyes sharp but kind. "Sometimes, things fall apart so better things can fall into place. But only if you're willing to make space for them." I think about this, feeling a weight lift inside me. I've been clinging to the idea of who I thought Emily was, of what I thought we were building together, refusing to let myself see the truth. But the truth is, she's given me a gift in her own twisted way. A chance to start over, free of lies, free of the expectations that had bound me to her. We sit in silence for a while, watching the sun rise higher, casting warmth across the park. When I finally get up to leave, I feel a deep, unexpected sense of peace. The man nods to me as if he understands, and I thank him, knowing he's given me something priceless. A new perspective. As I jog back to Dan's, I feel lighter, like I'm finally shedding the last layers of Emily's betrayal. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm running towards something instead of away from it. And as I reach Dan's door, I realize that what I'm running toward is me. The person I lost somewhere along the way. The one I'm finally ready to find again. Back at Dan's, I settle into the small guest room and pull out my laptop. For a long moment, I just sit there, staring at the screen, wondering what comes next. I've spent so many years in routines that revolved around Emily. Our shared calendar, our vacations, our daily check-ins, that I feel a strange blankness staring into the future without her. But it's not an emptiness. It's a canvas. I start with something small. I'd always wanted to take a few classes to advance my career, but Emily had convinced me it was too much time and too much hassle. She'd wanted us focused on planning vacations, doing couple things, and I'd gone along with it, pushing my own goals aside. I'd barely thought about those goals in years, and now I realize that they're still there, waiting patiently for me. I open up the community college website, scrolling through the courses until I find what I'm looking for. A certification program I've always been interested in. With a click, I sign up for the course. Feels like a small, simple thing, but it's more than that. It's a reclaiming. I'm choosing this for myself, without asking for anyone's approval or worrying about their opinion. Afterward, I pull out a notebook and start listing all the things I've wanted to do but never got around to. It's a strange mix. Some things as small as trying out new restaurants that Emily would have turned her nose up at, some as big as finally taking the solo hiking trip I daydreamed about. But each one feels like a step closer to building the life I want. Dan pops his head in, raising an eyebrow at the notebook. "What's all this?" he asks, grinning. "Just a list," I say, feeling a bit self-conscious but also proud. "Things I want to do. Stuff I kept putting off." Dan chuckles, walking over to take a look. "A solo hiking trip, huh? Nice. Sounds like you're finally doing you, man." "Yeah," I say, nodding. "Feels like it's time." That evening, I decide to take one more step forward. I open up my social media, where I know Emily has probably spun her version of the story, her tale of woe and twisted truths. I've avoided the platform for days, dreading what she might have said. But tonight, I feel stronger. Instead of getting lost in her narrative, I simply post a message. Short, simple, and to the point. Starting over isn't easy, but sometimes it's the best thing you can do. Here's to new beginnings. Almost immediately, supportive comments pour in from friends, people who genuinely care, people who see through Emily's lies and know my character. It feels good, even liberating, to put my voice back into the world, unfiltered and honest. For the first time in months, I feel like I'm taking control of my own story. That night, as I lie in bed, I feel a sense of calm I haven't felt in years. I realize I'm no longer dreading tomorrow or clinging to the past. I'm finally looking forward, focused on what lies ahead, knowing that whatever comes next is mine to shape, on my own terms. The morning sun filters through the window, casting a warm, golden glow over the room. For the first time in months, I wake up without that heavy feeling pressing on my chest. I get up, stretch, and feel the weight of the last few weeks lifting, like I'm stepping out of a shadow I didn't even realize was there. I head into the kitchen where Dan's making coffee. He glances up with a grin. "You look lighter." "Yeah," I say, pouring myself a cup. "Feels like it." He nods and we share a quiet moment. No more words are needed. We've dissected the betrayal, mourned the loss, and picked through the pieces of the life I thought I had. Now there's nothing left but moving forward. Today, I decide, is the first day of that new life. I check my phone and see a message from Jenny, the mutual friend who'd been swept up in Emily's web of gossip. She apologizes, saying she now realizes Emily hadn't been truthful about the situation. It's a small victory, but it feels good to know people are starting to see things clearly. I type back, "Thanks, Jenny. Moving forward from here. Appreciate the support." After breakfast, I lace up my shoes and head out for another run. The air is crisp, refreshing, full of that unmistakable energy that only a new beginning brings. Each step I take feels solid, grounded, like I'm building my own path. The anger, the bitterness, all of it fades into the rhythm of my feet hitting the pavement. I'm no longer running away from anything. I'm running towards something new, something unknown, something I'm ready to meet head-on. When I get back to Dan's, I start making plans for the next steps. Finding my own place, setting up a routine, focusing on the certification course I'd signed up for. Every task feels purposeful, like a brick in the foundation of the life I'm building. There's clarity in each decision, a simplicity in finally putting myself first. As the weeks pass, I settle into this new life, a life without secrets, without lies, without the weight of Emily's judgment hanging over me. I find joy in the small things, trying that new restaurant, taking a weekend hiking trip, even just sitting in a coffee shop, enjoying the quiet with a book. These moments, so simple yet so profoundly mine, remind me that happiness doesn't need to be complicated. One evening, I sit alone on the porch, watching the sunset. There's no grand resolution, no sweeping revelation, just a steady peace, a contentment I haven't felt in years. Emily's shadow has finally faded, leaving only me, my choices, and the life I'm creating. Looking out over the horizon, I know I'm ready. Ready for whatever's next, whatever life brings my way. For the first time, I'm free. And that freedom is the best thing I've ever given myself.